Hello and welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club, the place investors go to learn tips, tricks, and stories from other investors in the field. Before I introduce today's guest, I have three short housekeeping items to cover. First, if you like our content, the best way to support us is simply to like, subscribe, comment, or share this episode with your friends and family. Second, we are active investors ourselves and are always on the lookout for mobile home, RV, mixed-use commercial, and multifamily properties in MSAs with a population of 100,000 or more. So if you are also an active investor and have something you think we may be interested in, we would love to take a look. Send us the details of the deal at www.therealestateinvestingclub.com. Third, if you are a new investor and would like to learn how to get started or scale your real estate investing business, go to www.therealestateinvestingclub.com to check out our course. So without further ado, let's dive right in. We have a very special guest with us today, so buckle up, grab your pen and paper, and enjoy the ride. All right, and we are live. Today we have with us Timothy Lyons. Timothy is a New York City fire lieutenant, an ER nurse of 8 years, and a recently turned real estate investor starting in 2019. He is closing on his first syndication deal, 43 units in 2 weeks. So we're really excited about that. Tim, thank you very much for jumping on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Gabe. I thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely. To get us started, why don't you tell everybody, who you are, what you do, and how you got started down that path in real estate in the first place?
Yeah, I'd love to. One of my favorite topics to talk about. So I'm actually really new to real estate. I only got started last summer, 2019. And how the story goes is basically I'm on the beach with my family on vacation, and I read a book that everyone in the real estate space has kind of breezed through at one point in their careers, and that's Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
The real estate Bible.
Right, the Bible. And it sounds so cliche, and everyone kind of says it, but that was a game changer. And I'm, I got kids hanging on me. I'm trying to build a sandcastle with one hand, and I got the book in the other, and I flew through it in 2 days, and that right then and there, I told my wife, I said, babe, we're going to be real estate investors. So that was July of 19. By November of 19, I was closing on my first real estate property, and that was a 3-family property. And I love that multifamily aspect to it, even though it's a small multi. I only need 2 out of the 3 units to pay all the bills.
Cash flow.
And the third one's my cash flow. So it's amazing, right? So I had that proof of concept, and I think I needed it, but more importantly, like the people in my circle needed it too, like my wife and, my parents were like, what are you doing? This sounds a little risky. And, because like a lot of other people, I come from the school of, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, put money as much as you can into your 401k, don't have any debt and, climb the corporate ladder. So, my story is kind of unique in the fact that I became a New York City firefighter 2 weeks after graduating from college. I was 22.
Oh, nice.
I feel lucky, right? That's an incredible job. It's an incredible career. I've met some of the most incredible people. I've had amazing experiences. I've had tons of good days, and I've had a handful of really, really tough days. So, I was doing that. And when I first got into the New York City Fire Department as a probie, I noticed that everybody had a second job. So whether they were, roofers, siders, electricians, plumbers. I mean,
that's funny.
Business owners. I mean,
a lot of contractors that I've interacted with have been firefighters. I kind of noticed a trend, in people that I've interacted with. So it's good you confirmed that. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, dude. So like, where I thought I had a job, I was a firefighter. I was like, oh my God, I got to get a second job. Right. So, I did a ton of odd jobs, here and there. And then I went back to school and, became a nurse because there was 3 guys in my firehouse who were nurses, and, they had the nice cars and their wives didn't work. And I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. Maybe I'll be a nurse. Way back when in college, I was pre-med for about 15 minutes, until I joined a fraternity. So, I did have an interest, So fast forward, man, I got a job in a level 1 trauma center, in an emergency room, and I just loved it. I guess I love the pressure and the different stuff that happens every day. And, I would work 12-hour shifts in a per diem, capacity. So the next thing I know, I'm working 70, 80, 90 hours a week, a little bit of overtime in the firehouse, a little bit of hospital shift work. And, now I got a gaggle of girls. I got 3 of them, 9, 6, and 1. And when they're small, they don't say anything because they don't know any better. So when I'm at work, I don't feel bad about leaving, and I'm providing for my family, and then everything's all good. Now they're older and they want to know, Dad, where are you going? You just got home. You go back to work? I mean, this is crazy. I haven't seen you, and da-da-da. So, the ball was rolling for a while about what am I going to do? What's my next step? And real estate was one of those things. It's always in the back of, I think, a lot of people's minds. But for some reason, it seems unattainable, or, it's not for everybody. And, that wasn't good enough for me. So I had to dive in. So I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I got to be honest with you, I was a big music content consumption guy on like Pandora and stuff.
Nice.
If I've listened to 5 songs in the last year, that's going to be a lot, because my mindset, which I'd love to talk more about, has totally changed. And, every time I'm in the car, each morning, each day, I'm taking some sort of content in, whether it's podcasts, audiobooks, Audible, jumping onto webinars. I mean, there is so much information out there in today's day and age with our technology. It's almost criminal if you don't take advantage of it. And so that's kind of my journey. So I get into my 3 family, and I have my proof of concept. And each year my wife and I would do okay in our taxes. We get a little return, and we're like, oh, cool. This will be in our savings. And just owning the house for 2 months of 2019, we saw a bump in our tax situation. So you can see the power of it, and that was only after 2 months of owning. So November 2019, I'm saying to my wife, I'm like, babe, we're going to buy 30 of these, 3-family houses. And, you quickly realize
there's a better way.
Yeah. Well, but also we quickly realize, we don't have capital for 30 houses. Right. I mean, could we do maybe 1 a year or 1 every 2 years? Yeah, we could probably do that. But then we realized, listen, this is a 100-year-old vintage property. Everything needs work. I mean, when I bought my first property, I put a new roof on, new siding. We did a renovation of the first floor unit. And
this was in New York City, or is it in a suburb of New York City?
It's in a suburb, yep. And we spent a ton of time painting and putting floors down and tiling. And the return on time invested, while I'm grateful that I had the time to do it, and I learned a ton from doing it with my own, sweat equity, I realized quickly that this is not scalable. This is not something that I'm looking to create more time, and this was not going to be a scalable option for us. So, again, I went back to the drawing board, and I'm like, well, how do I get into multifamily? And I realized it's a whole different animal. 1 to 4 units versus commercial multifamily is totally, totally different. So, I'm listening to podcasts, and I hear guys talk about mentorship and coaching. And, I'm from New York City, dude, and I have a healthy dose of skepticism in my DNA. And
that's good. You got to keep that with you as you go forward.
And, I'm like, what kind of Bernie Madoff situation is multifamily? And, the more limiting beliefs that I could melt away. I mean, I've grown so much from that. So I ended up vetting a couple of different coaches, getting on calls, emailing them, going back and forth. And one of the group that I ended up going with for my mentoring and coaching and multifamily, they were head and shoulders above everybody else.
Oh, nice. They
cared about my goals, my future, my why, my family. We did an 1.5-hour call with my wife, and I'm like, guys, I don't know that my wife wants to hop on a call because she's not really into the real estate thing like I am. And they're like, no, it's cool,
Which, just to give them a little credit, which group was this, if you don't mind me asking?
So this is the Jake and Gino.
Jake and Gino.
Yeah.
Gino was on this podcast. That's funny. Just last week.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gino is awesome, dude. I love that guy. I love his mindset. I love his positivity. Yep. I love his the growth that he's had in his career. We just met in Knoxville, Tennessee a couple weeks ago. And I just couldn't wait to shake his hand. I mean, COVID obviously had put a hard stop to some of the events, but we finally broke out and were able to meet each other. And oh my God, man, he is just amazing. Jake Stenziano, Josh Rosen, Dylan McGow, all you guys, very powerful group, very, very powerful group.
Absolutely.
So that's the group that I went with, and I have not looked back once. And the people, your network, people talk about your network is your net worth and proximity is power. And, you hear these terms and you're like, man, that sounds cute, on podcasts, but what does it mean? And once I started actively listening and then I took action, I can now say that it's true. I mean, you meet incredible people. There's deals to be made. There's partnerships to be formed. The information sharing alone is worth the price of admission. And so, I highly recommend it. And, it's something that, people in our community call R&D, rip off and duplicate. If you see somebody with success, you can go figure that out by yourself, but you may spend 5-10 years doing that.
Yeah.
Especially
is the shortcut for sure.
Yeah. And listen, it takes hard work, but especially, if somebody's still doing the W-2 like I am, mentorship is the way to go. So,
Nice.
So I joined that the first week in March. And my goal was to do a ton of the education piece and do my work from my home office here while my girls were in school. And this is the first week in March, and everybody knows 2 weeks later, COVID-19 hits. And now my girls are home and we're doing Google Classroom. And, I'm now, Tim the fireman, Tim the nurse. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and now I'm a teacher too, on top of being a wannabe real estate investor. So, listen, we figured it out like everything else. But, since I work as a New York City firefighter, I work as a lieutenant in the borough of Queens. And, when COVID hit hot and heavy, my neighborhood was just decimated by COVID-19. It's a very poor neighborhood, people on top of people, and it spread like wildfire. And it was a little bit scary time because we didn't know a lot of the answers and how was it spread. And, it was, in mid-March, late March, we decided, my wife and I, that I was going to move out of the house. I moved into a family member's house, and my family member moved into my house to help my wife. And I was quarantined for 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Because we just didn't know what was going to go on. So instead of putting on the news, instead of listening to music, I just went through material and I just started calling brokers left and right and bankers and, building my business, building my network. And at the time, that's when we started Cityside Capital, which is my company, my real estate investment company with my brother, Greg. And we took off. We said to ourselves, listen, during COVID, we can just, wallow in our, sadness and the depression about what's going on, or we can make something happen. And that's what we did. And it's been amazing, the growth that we've had, because, like we were talking about before we came online, I'm going to be a general partner in a 43 unit syndication that's closing in 2 weeks. And that's within 5 months of being involved in commercial real estate. So incredible journey.
I mean, I love your journey. I love your story. It's inspiring in many ways, and there's many different directions I could take this. But first, thank you for all the work that you do as a firefighter and an ER nurse. My sister's an ER nurse, and I know how difficult that line of work is. So thank you for everything you do there. And so, I mean, there's so many aspects about your story that are really inspiring, especially for people who are just getting into real estate investing and thinking, should I make the leap? Should I not? How fast can I go? And one of the things that really jumped out at me about your story is, I mean, you were talking at the very beginning, back in November of 2019, you had considered it, and it sounded like you didn't have, family members always want the best for you, but they go through this mindset of fear. So it sounded like you didn't really have the full support of the extended family behind you, and you just knew that this is the path that you had to take. So kind of take us through that. I mean, you went from November to buying your first triplex even in 4 months after that period, which, I've heard people wait a year, 2 years before they make their first purchase. So, you really you lit the fire under you and got going. So kind of take us to the beginning period and how was those first initial steps, becoming an investor yourself? Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com, so if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah. So, so I started with a Bigger Pockets podcast and Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold and a couple others. And I just started on episode 1, and I was hearing everyday people, teachers, firefighters, cops, florists, waiters, car salesmen, small business owners, stay-at-home moms. I mean, I'm hearing all these incredible stories about people who are, and they're doing all sorts of stuff. They're doing note investing, single family rentals, duplexes, the bird method. They're doing all these different things. And I'm saying to myself, holy cow, if they can do it, I can do it. Right. So, I tell a lot of people, I rely on my gut for all my decisions, and I trust my gut. It's helped me immeasurably through my career and my life. And, I just knew I was hovering around the bullseye and that I had to do this. It made sense. And listen, my wife is so supportive. I love my wife, Christina. And, she knows that once I commit to something, it's going to happen. And I had talked to her about real estate, and she's like, Tim, she's like, I can hear it in your voice, and go for it, go do it. And, that's a big responsibility, right? Because we don't have a ton of capital. I'm not a trust fund baby, but, we've worked hard over the years, and we have what we have. And how I deploy that now it means everything to our family. So it was a big decision. And, people around me were supportive. My wife, my dad's like one of my best friends. I talk to him almost every day. And God love him. He's very conservative. He still invests in certificates of deposit at the local bank. That's how conservative he is,
That's awesome.
But he understands that I have vision and I have drive, and I'm going to get things done. And he was super supportive. So, those were two of the main people. And then my brother, who's my now business partner, he's been in real estate, in his adult life. So I had some people to bounce ideas off of, and that was huge. Just being able to educate myself. I've bought and sold 2 houses, primary residences. So I kind of knew what the process was like to buy a house. But, as far as setting up an LLC, getting a business checking account, how do you maintain that LLC in the state? How do you, conduct business, getting a CPA, you need a real estate CPA. And I don't mean to digress, but everybody who thinks about getting into real estate, you got to get an on point, and I'm not saying aggressive, but you got to know somebody. The CPA has to know
who
real
knows
estate
real
stuff.
estate. Yep.
You wouldn't go to a brain surgeon if you broke your ankle, right? Because even though they're both doctors, the neurosurgeon's not going to help you.
Yeah. We've had a few CPAs on this channel, and I think it was just last year that I switched from my regular CPA to someone who really specializes in real estate, and it is night and day. You're absolutely right. They know things. They're like magicians when it comes to taxes. So I'm definitely with you on that point. So why did you guys choose Triplex? Did you just, I don't remember reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was a number of years ago. Did he focus on multifamily, or did you just think, multifamily is the way to go? I don't want to buy just a single family house.
No, he does touch on, multifamily, because that's, his portfolio in the book. But I had the limiting belief. Like a lot of people, they talk about, all right, I'm going to invest in real estate. Let me start looking at the cheapest thing I could think of, condos, small single family properties, maybe a duplex. I'll get really crazy, and all of a sudden, you start realizing very quickly that, all right, yeah, you can do a single family property, but the minute that person leaves, you have 100% vacancy. And then you have holding costs, and then you have make ready costs. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like I could potentially lose, my whole year's income with one vacancy. Like, oh my God. I was already married with kids. I wasn't going to be doing the Burr method or house hacking or any of, that would have been a tough conversation with my wife, right?
We're moving into this house. We're going to do it every year.
Yeah. That would have been a tougher conversation. But so, commercial made sense, but I wasn't ready in the beginning. I just wasn't there yet. Once I had that proof of concept with, my small multi, and I could really kind of visualize it and understand it. And then when I was operating it, I said, oh my God, like, this is why people go right to multifamily. And I've heard a number of different successful people say, like Dan Merrill. Dan Merrill always talks about, he got started in the fix and flips and then single families. And he always says, if I knew then what I know now, I would have been straight to commercial real estate. So, so you start hearing some of these things and, you just got to put the pieces together. I always talk about, one of the guys who I love to read his stuff is John Assaraf. He's like a personal development guy, right?
Yep.
And he talks about a concept of being interested and being committed. Like, so if you're interested, you'll just, you'll be interested in something and you'll go hot and heavy into podcasts and books, but then you'll make some sort of excuse. I can't do that. I can't afford it. It's not for me. Too hard, whatever it is. And you can go back to eating ice cream and watching Netflix, versus being committed. And if you're committed, dude, you're going to figure it out. And I know it sounds very cliche, but if you want something bad enough, you're going to figure it out. And that's just what I did.
No, I love it. And I'm of the same mindset. If you're interested, it's just going to be, you don't go to things that you're interested in, go to the things that you actually commit to, because that is where the money happens, where the magic happens. So, you went from that triplex, you bought it in November of 2019, which is so, that was last year. It was not too long ago. And you've held it for that period. And then in March, you decided that you're going commercial, you're going to syndicate. And so you went for this multifamily that you're closing on in 2 weeks. So, this is you're fresh through the process of buying your first multifamily property. So I would be remiss if I didn't grab onto that, that experience that you're going through right now. So tell everybody, what is, what was the process like going through it the first time for you? How did first start with, how did you find the property? Let's start there.
So, yeah, I just kind of put it out there to a lot of my friends and family. I'm going to get into real estate, and kids video. My kid's calling me on my phone. I'm sorry. I put it out there so people knew what I was looking for, and a friend of a friend said, hey, I got this realtor, and she's great. So I hooked in with her, and it was already a quick process. I think 6 weeks. We found one property. I made an offer. I didn't get it, and then right around the corner, I said, hey, listen, let's go check out this property. And we walked in, and I just knew it. I'm like, this is the one. So we ended up getting a great price on it, and
so you got the 52 unit you got through a broker that you knew as a friend?
No, this is the 3 unit. Yeah, the 3
unit.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about, so you've passed the 3 unit. Going through to syndication is a big step for people.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So I wasn't even truly going to be jumping into the syndication side. When I first joined Jake and Gino, I wanted to get into like an 8 or a 12 or a 16 unit, me, my brother, my dad, and kind of take it down. I was more learning the underwriting process and the purchasing process, and because we wanted to, be long-term buy and hold, generational wealth type stuff. And again, just being like the power of proximity, talking to people in the network, like that's totally cool. And that's one way you can do it. And I'm still going to do that. That's still one of my avenues of real estate investing. But, when you're in a room or talking in a virtual, Zoom call with 30 people or 20 people, and they have thousands of units and they're taking down 182 unit deals and 250 unit deals, all of a sudden you're like, man, that 8 unit or that 16 unit, maybe that may be a good deal, but maybe I should look into this other thing, right? And I'm a blue collar guy. I'm a fireman and a nurse, right? But when you're in this network now, and all of a sudden there's liquidity within the network, and there's equity that's ready to be deployed. I mean, it changes your mindset. It changes, the growth that occurs, saying, all right, well, listen, if I find a 180 unit property, I can team up with people in my network, and they're going to be more than happy to help me underwrite it, get it across the finish line, do my due diligence, the whole thing. And now you can add 180 units to your bottom line. So that was attractive to me, and I went all in. So we ended up, I'm partnering with somebody in the community on this syndication, and he had found it, and we worked it up, did the due diligence, and then there's so much money on the sidelines right now, and you hear that from so many different people. That was my first time raising money, and I'm like, this is gonna be so easy, and it's not easy. But so yes,
people don't want to give away their money that easy.
Yes, there's a ton of capital out there, but getting it across the finish line is certainly a whole different animal.
Now that you have your first deal done, your first syndication done, though, it should become a lot easier for you going down the road.
Yeah, I hope so, because you know what? Listen, this is a learning experience for me too. Like, because one of my limiting beliefs was, who's going to want to invest with me? Up until now, I've been Tim the fireman and Tim the nurse, and now all of a sudden I'm taking down a $5.7 million property. But between myself and my partners, we were able to raise $2.5 million in 6 days.
Oh, wow. Congrats. Yeah. That's really good. Congratulations.
Really, really good.
And you're absolutely right. Limiting beliefs, it's funny how your identity can kind of block you from things that you can easily do if you just take the action. But it sounds like you ran into that too, to the point where, you just didn't, your beliefs were preventing you from even accepting the opportunity that was in front of you.
Yeah. And listen, just being exposed to these people, and they can totally help you with how to raise capital. And I didn't think it was going to be that hard, to be honest with you. But it was a little bit more challenging than I thought. And the main takeaway from raising capital was there's 3 things that you need to raise capital. And everybody grab a pen and write this down. The investors need to know you, like you, and trust you. Not that they don't care about the IRR and the cash on cash return and the hold period and the asset class, but if they don't know, like, and trust you, you're not going to get $1 from them. Generally speaking, right? So the people who I went to in the beginning were my friends and family, and fortunately for me, I had been immersed in commercial real estate, so I can talk about real estate with confidence, and I understand the process. And what's exciting to me is that not a lot of people do know the process. Not a lot of people do know about, syndications and private placement memorandums and what's possible. And people were like, Tim, how do you know about this? How come I'm a successful doctor? And this is the first time I'm hearing about, where I can park $50,000 of my money and make a 8 to 10% return, per year, so if nothing else, the education piece is something that I love. I could just talk about it all day long. And, because listen, at the end of the day, I'm doing this for my family and to build wealth, but you know what? A part of me is really excited to tell other people about this and help them on their journey, to have them say, wow, this is a viable option for me. Equities and commodities and everything's in the toilet, and COVID-19's killing the market, even though we're getting propped up by all sorts of money printing by the Fed. This is a real asset, and something that, generally speaking, after doing a little bit of education, people can get a hold of pretty easily.
Yep, absolutely. It is. I mean, the opportunity really is there for everybody. But I like that it sounds like a lot of where you are today came about because of this, network that you'd built, which it's been repeated over and over on this episode, on this podcast. Every guest says, the one thing that contributes the most to their success here in real estate is their relationships. It is their network. And you said raising capital, know, like, and trust. Those are the three things that really help you along the journey in raising capital. And that you didn't even mention anything about numbers, about location, or anything like that. Know, like, and trust. Those are all relationship aspects. It's all the people that you know and the network that you build. So I just like that aspect of your story, that you got into this group with Jake and Gino. You were among all these people that had a higher mindset than you, that were, I guess higher is a different word, but they had access to a level of education in the real estate sphere that you didn't, and they kind of brought you up to that space where now you're closing a 52 unit deal, which is really awesome, especially 2.5 million raised in 6 days. That is a feat. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a perfect segue into talking about how real estate really is a team sport. You can do this by yourself and figure it out, and you can have success, by all means. But having the team aspect, and that's building your team, whether it's a CPA, a broker, insurance broker, someone who's really good at due diligence, someone who's an ace at underwriting. I mean, the beautiful part about commercial real estate is that you get to know spreadsheets really, really well. And if a deal doesn't pencil out on the spreadsheet, you don't waste any more time on it. You're not going to fall in love with the location or the granite countertops or the nice pool, and no. It doesn't pencil out. The cap rate's too low, or whatever. They're asking too much money for it. Next, so, but the beautiful part is, all of a sudden you start plugging in the numbers with all your conservative assumptions, and something starts working, and you're like, whoa, okay, this is going to be a deal, and part of being in the program is I have a deal coach, I have an accountability coach, and I can bring that stuff to them and have a 2 or 3 or 4 pairs of eyes go over my underwriting and say, Tim, you nailed it. Let's get the letter of intent out. Let's get the offer going. And you're not doing it by yourself. So team sport all the way. And, it really adds value from taking yourself from that scarcity mindset and then really growing into that abundant mindset that, I think I heard it explained one time as, I'd rather have a little bit of juice from the squeeze of a watermelon than have the whole juice from the squeeze of a grape,
That's interesting. I've never heard that.
So, and it makes total sense. And, that's where I am now. So listen, we have the 43 unit closing in 2 weeks. We have other properties that are in the due diligence phase. And I would just say, I mean, because of the situation we're in now with COVID-19 and our economy and where it is, people are scared. And, I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't worried about, asset prices and equities and the stock market. But what I do love is that you can make your own assumptions and your own underwriting assumptions. And you know what? I feel confident in that. And you know what? People listening to this, who are going to be passive investors maybe one day, not only is your sponsor, firstly, hugely important to align with your sponsor, goals, conservatism, and everything like that. But when we have to go to the bank to get leverage for deals, guess what? They underwrite the deal too. So not only is the sponsor underwriting the deal, it's getting checked by the bank. And if anyone's dealt with the bank trying to get a loan, exactly that the process. I mean, they want the middle name of your fourth cousin removed. So just one way to feel a lot better about being a passive investor is that there's multiple eyes that go onto this.
Yep. Awesome. Well, hey, I love your story. It's awesome. I hope people listening and watching, they got a little bit of inspiration and some motivation to go out there and finish your first deal. Tim has a record of 4 months from reading the real estate Bible to closing. So that is a challenge for anybody out there. Tim, we are at the end of the episode. I really appreciated having you on here. We have a real quick section where we just do quick questions. The first question is about books, real estate books, and other books. If you could give a recommendation for your favorite real estate book, and then one for your just general life wisdom book, what would it be?
Oh boy, I'm looking at all my books right now. So, I mean, besides the Bible, right? I mean,
you can use that one. That's a good one. A lot of people have said it.
There's one that I just finished and it was really good. It was Raising Capital. Let me see, it's right here.
I listened to that one on audiobook.
Raising Capital for Real Estate by Hunter Thompson.
Nice.
If you haven't gotten it and you're going to be a capital raiser or a syndicator, you got to read this. It's good stuff. It was just really, it lays out a lot of nice topics. As far as, non-real estate, I would say I just finished up a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Oh yeah.
And that was just incredible. I read it twice in a row. It was just so powerful. So really talking about fixed mindset versus the growth mindset.
Perfect. Two great book recommendations, Raising Capital and Mindset by Carol Dweck. Next question. If you could go back to the Tim back in November of 2019, who was just reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just opening up that book on the beach with your kids, and give that Tim one piece of advice moving forward in real estate, what would that piece of advice be?
Keep taking consistent action. Getting stuck gets you nowhere, right? Getting stuck and getting scared and getting nervous, gets you nowhere. So just educate yourself and keep going forward. If you're going to fail, you want to fail forward. Absolutely.
Get moving. I love consistent action is definitely, for me, it's a thing that I feel like is the most important to achieve success. And so I like that piece of advice. The next one, we use a ton of tools in our lives, apps and tools. I think we have too many, but some of them really do contribute to our life. So if you could give one recommendation for an app or a tool that you use, what would that recommendation be?
Hands down, it's my underwriting tool by my mentor, Chris Jackson. It's called Synthesis, and I'm pretty sure you can find it on his website, sharplineequity.com. Cool. It's an incredibly easy tool to use, and it's just jam packed with powerful features. So yeah, Synthesis. And
you said that was on sharppointequity.com?
Sharpline Equity. Yeah, it's by Chris Jackson.
I'll have to check that out. All right. And final question. You have given us tons of good advice, and I'm sure there's people who are listening and watching who would like to reach out and pick your brain, maybe ask you a few questions. If somebody did want to reach out to you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, sure. You can email me anytime. My email is tim@citysidecap.com. My website is citysidecap.com, CITYSIDECAP.com.
Perfect. Tim@citysidecap.com. I'll also put his LinkedIn URL in the show notes if you want to reach out through that URL. Again, Tim, thank you for coming on. I appreciated the conversation. I know everybody else did as well. For everybody who's here on this journey with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are what makes this possible. Again, the best way to support the show is just to subscribe, like, and share with your friends and family. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good week, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investing Club. If you feel we provided value, we would appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up, share it with your friends online, whatever it may be. If you'd like to share or partner with us on an investment deal, we are always looking for quality projects. Go to www.therealestateinvestingclub.com to get in contact with one of our partners. Otherwise, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.